Good day everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking about this two heatsink, and thanks to Bob Soda, one of the marketing agent for Gelid Solutions, and they have provided me with this two set. This is an engineering sample of the Tranquillo 5, revision 5, and this is the Glacier RGB, and I will be doing the unboxing for both set, though this is actually not the original packing. And I'll be talking about the accessories, the mounting mechanism, and last but not least, the specification, and also to test on these two heatsink and how they fare on a actual processor itself. Let's get into it. I'll first start off with the Glacier RGB itself. Now, this is a very big box, and what's inside it? It comes with a accessory pack. Then this is the heatsink itself. And inside this heatsink itself, it contains two boxes. One is which is here, and the other one is inside the box. I believe these are the fans. Yep, the ARGB Stella fans from Gelid. There are two of them. I'm gonna set this aside. Now the heatsink itself contains 6 copper pipes, and these are the fin stack, widely spread. There are 2 sets, and this is the bottom itself. I will talk about the mechanism, how to mount this on the actual motherboard to the processor. Now, for accessories, wow, that's a lot of accessories. Is there anything else? Oh, there's an instruction manual where it tells you all the parts and the mounting. This is the Intel version, how you mount the Intel for the Intel processor, and the back is for the AMD. There are lots of parts here. I will split them up nicely and to explain what are the parts. For the accessory part, there will be 3 parts. This is for the Intel, which covers the LGA 775 115X, which is 1151 or 1156, 1366 socket, 2011 socket, and the 1200 socket. This set over here, right? Okay, let's off this. This is for the AMD set off with the protective AMD brackets, and these are the mounting brackets, and this is mainly for the back plate and the mounting. Now it does come off with the thermal paste from Gelid, known as the CG Extreme. I've used this thermal paste before. I use MX4 or MX5. It's pretty good. Then it does come with 4 clips. These are the clips for your fans to be mounted on the heatsink itself, which I will show you later. And it comes with this fan splitter, whereby you need to daisy chain these 2 fans into one header, and this will plug to your motherboard. Now, speaking of the sharing of this thermal paste itself, right? They do provide this, and what's this? Now, if you to attach this to the thermal paste itself, when you squeeze the thermal paste out, you can use this, right, to pull down, or should I say to spread your thermal paste on the processor itself. I will be testing this heatsink with the Tranquillo Revision 5 heatsink on the AMD system itself, and I can show you how to do the mounting on Intel, but a rough gauge I can show you. Looking at the back plate itself, right, this you can see there's an Intel wording over here, there's an AMD wording over here. Assuming this is your motherboard, the back of it, the rear, face whatever processor that you are using. Let's say you are using the Intel, right, face the wording Intel inside, showing the AMD outside. So this is how you should be mounting on the Intel itself. Else for AMD, right, just turn over with the rear itself, right, showing you the Intel wording. Probably you'll get confused right now, but I'll show you later when I mount on the AMD itself. So again, I'm showing you as mounting the Intel processor itself. So this is how it should be mounted. So having to say this, right, you will need to insert 4 screws, which comes with the package. It's best to leave it on the ground, or should I say a flat table, and you mount all the 4 screws. And when you have done that, right, place 4 washers, which is provided, so that you will hold the screws on the bracket itself. See, it's done. Once this is done, right, at the rear of your motherboard there are 4 holes. Just align it and put the back plate on it. Then on the front side of the motherboard, assuming the processor is over here, what you need to do is to place the spacer. Once you've done with the spacer itself, right, next is these 2 mounting brackets for your heatsink. So if you see carefully over here, right, there are 2 arrows over here showing one direction, and over the other one at the direction. Set the arrows itself pointing to each other, which is this shape and not this way. Okay, this is the wrong way to mount it. Turn it over. So this is the way. Then align over here. Once you have actually placed these 2 brackets, use this 4 thumb screw to tighten it up. So once you have actually tightened up, then you'll be able to mount your heatsink on this standoff. So in order to mount the heatsink itself, right, to the standoff, you can see there are 2 screws over here. Align this 2 screw to this 2. 1, 2, which is this and this. Use a Phillips screwdriver. Okay, once you align it over here and the back, of course it's actually flat. Use your Phillips screwdriver to screw in this 2 nut until it sits. And once it sits right, this will be contacting your Intel processor. Now do take note that this bracket itself, right, is mainly for the socket LGA 775 115X, which I mentioned, 1151 or 1156, 1366, and the 1200 brackets. I mean socket. And for 2011, right, you will need to use this. You don't need this bracket at all. In fact, you only need this part here. So imagine that you're using a processor that has a 2011 socket. You don't have to place this. What you need is just to screw this 4 screw on its original back plate, and then mount this brackets onto these 4 screws. And of course you will need the washer to tighten them. Then you'll be able to mount this. Speaking of which, right, the voltage tolerance of this heatsink itself is up to TDP 220, and sad to say that you can't mount this on a 12th gen Intel processor. I believe there is an additional bracket if you inquire. If let's say you purchase this heatsink itself, right, you will need to inquire from Gelid saying that you need the 1700 bracket. These are the Gelid Stellar fans, which I've actually done a video on showing my viewers how the ARGB effects is. Now the ARGB effects is pretty nice. You can check out on that video. I'll just leave the URL at my top right hand corner. Speaking of which, right, the fan load for this, in order for the fan blade to spin, you can daisy chain them with the splitter over here to your motherboard fan header. Not an issue to run on 2 fans because it's pretty low amperage. But when you're doing the daisy chain for ARGB, right, though over here is 2, I believe some of you will just daisy chain additional ARGB connectors that comes with a standard connector and splitter. Now, for one fan itself, right, it's taking up to 0.74 ampere. So for 2, it will be 1.48 ampere. Please check on your motherboard itself, on the ARGB header itself, the 5V ARGB header. Make sure there is enough current to provide to your fans. 2 is not an issue, but I believe some of you have other fans that comes with this kind of standard ARGB connector that splits, where you can daisy chain them into one and to plug to your motherboard. Now, please do not overdo it. As I mentioned, the current drawn on this ARGBs on one fan itself, right, is pretty high. It's 0.74. So imagine that your motherboard is only catered for 3 ampere on one ARGB 5V header. If you were to plug more than 6 or 7 fans, right, your ARGB header will melt. So take note on the voltage, I mean the amperage. This fan spin at 500 RPM, which is the lowest, and at max is 1600. And they are made of dual ball bearings, which is very lasting. I'm talking about the Moto ball bearing. They are much more better compared to hydraulic bearings and rifle bearings and such. So it's going to last a very long time. Moving on, I will be talk about the Tranquillo Revision 5, another heatsink. This is the Tranquillo Revision 5 heatsink, which is released this year April, which is not very long ago. Now, I do have this engineering sample. I believe the retail box, or should I say the final version, is of the same content. Now, what's inside the box? This is the accessory package, not that much, and the heatsink itself. The heatsink itself, the tolerance wattage is at 150 watt TDP, and it's in black with 4 copper pipes, as you can see over here, and you have the fan attached to it. The amperage drawn on this fan is 0.18 ampere, and it runs at 700 RPM to a max of 1600 RPM, and these are hydrodynamic fans. The accessories it come off with, right, are pretty straightforward. You have these screws for you to mount this mounting brackets. This is actually for the AMD, and this is for the Intel. And as mentioned, right, this bag of screw here, there are 4 for you to attach the mounting bracket to the heatsink, which is like this. The back plate itself is pretty straightforward. This is for the Intel itself. Now for AMD, right, you'll be making use of the original bracket to mount this heatsink itself. But for for Intel, you will need this. Now, since this is a newly released heatsink, you're able to cater for 775, LGA 775, 1700, 1366, which is written on the brackets itself. So you just need to adjust, let's say for Gen 12 Intel processor, right, just set it to 1700. Same goes to the rest, 1700. Adjust this bracket over here. Then you will be able to mount this at the back of the motherboard itself. And it does come with this GC Pro thermal paste and with a spatula. The methodology of this test itself is pretty straightforward. I'll be using the 5700G from AMD itself. This is a Morta B550M motherboard, Then I'll run as default, no PBO settings, I'll just run it as default. The only thing that I will trigger is the XMP profile, which is for this 32GB kit RAM from Crucial Ballistic. Now, to be fair and square, right, I know that applying thermal paste over here, right, with the different heatsink like the Tranquillo, the Glarcier from Gelid, and I'll be using against this default AMD heatsink. So as mentioned, I'm not going to use thermal paste. Instead, I'll be using this. So to be fair and square, this is in fact a thermal pad that is specialized to use on heatsink itself for tests and benchmark. It can be reapplied again and again. So I'll be applying this so to have a fair and square comparison, so that it doesn't say that, you know, that I apply too much thermal paste or too little thermal paste that will affect the test itself. I will start off with the original heatsink that comes with this processor, and I'll run the Cinebench 23, and to show you the temperature 30 minutes. Then I'll swap it out. As I swap out, I will introduce SNI to show you how I mount this heatsink like the Tranquillo, then followed by the Glacier. Let's get into it. As you can see that my system is up and running. As mentioned to you, I've not done any overclocking or PBO2 or such, and I'm just running on XMP profile for this RAMs, and that's it. Now looking on the system itself, right, this is the whole system that I will be doing the benchmark. As you can see over here, right, it will show you the temperature and the usage, and this is the part where you will need to take note, the CPU temperature and the CPU usage. Now the idle temp is pretty high. I know that the default heatsink, it's not really that great. Probably I should just pull this up. So do take note of that. So at any point of time, if it hits more than 90 degrees Celsius, right, I will stop the test and I'll just swap the heatsink. Now I'm just going to run, I will say this, I will run 10 minutes, and just to show you what happened, here goes. To have this run 10 minutes, I can't bear to see the temperature. It's 95 degrees and it's throttling pretty badly. So I will stop this test and I will swap out the heatsink. I'll be first mounting the Tranquillo Revision 5. Now, I've mounted the brackets. This is actually the AM4 brackets, and this is for the Intel. Then how I go by doing it is just mounting the screw, the bracket with the screw in. So as you can see, I have aligned it properly. Then I'll screw this in. And once this is done, right, remember to peel off this protective sticker over here. And once you're done, right, make sure you use some alcohol to clean it. Once it's done, you can mount straight to your motherboard. And I would advise, due to the fact that the screw over here, right, is being blocked by the fan itself, so remove the fans first before you mount it. So once you have actually done the mounting, then you attach the fan back. After I installed the Tranquillo Revision 5, I have taken 2 pictures for you just to see the space and the gaps. One thing good about this heatsink itself is not that wide, so be it whether you place the fan to the back or to the front. Now, to the front itself, it will not block the RAMs. Whether you put low profile or high profile, it does not matter because it doesn't touch there. And at the back, right, it doesn't touch the VRM itself. And I've listed the specification over here if you want to know what are the specs. Going in depth, I've actually done the measurements. As you can see, inclusive of the fan itself, this is about 72mm, and the height from tip of the copper pipe or the tip of the fan itself, right, touches the processor itself is 154, and the gap between the processor and to the first fin over here is 38mm. And looking from the front, it's actually 120mm in length, and in height from the fins to the fins is 108. I'll proceed on with the test. As you can see, the system is up and running with the Tranquillo Revision 5 from Gelid, and taking you to the actual system itself. So you can see that previously it was 62 degrees Celsius, it dropped by 10 at idle. So I'm going to run at 10 minutes. So here goes. Ten minutes is almost up, left only about 29 seconds. Take a look at the temperature. It's hovering about 76 to 78, around there, and it drops 17 degrees compared to the original Heatsink, and it's not throttling. It's keeping up with 4.1, 4.2 gigahertz, which is pretty good. Now I'm going to switch to the Glacier. I've taken out the Tranquillo Revision 5 Heatsink, and right now I'm going to mount this Glacier RGB. Now before you do that, right, the first thing you need to do is to take out the back plate, the original back plate of the motherboard itself. Then next is to prepare, let me just put this aside. Next is to prepare the back plate. As I mentioned to you, right, there are indication of Intel and AMD. So this should be facing towards the back of the motherboard. Let me just show you. Okay, now as you can see over here is AMD, right? It should be facing like this, showing you the Intel and the AMD wording in underneath the motherboard itself. So let me just prepare this bracket. I'll just place this one side. So having to say this, right, this is where you should be looking at. So towards you, right, then you place the screw mountings. So what you need to do, place the screw holes, place the screws and put the washer in. Do the same on the other side, which is here and here, and place the washers so that the screws will hold on the back plate itself. Next thing you want to do is to insert to this 4 holes. So I'm just going to turn over. So with the back plate itself and the screws all fastened by the washer itself, right, align it to the 4 holes, place it in, turn over. Once you've actually done that, time to place the spacer. Once you've actually done with the spacer, next thing to do is to place this protective brackets. See, it sits nicely. Then followed by, these are the mounting brackets to mount your heatsink to here. So you do this. Make sure it's inwards and not this way, alright? This will not work. You have to set it this way. Next thing is, grab the thumb screws, fasten everything, tighten everything up. You don't need to use force. just hand tight will do. Once everything is tightened, right, it's time to screw this heatsink onto this bracket over here. And before you do so, make sure you peel this off, and with a bit of alcohol, clean the surface of the heatsink block. Now why I'm actually doing this is because that due to the fact that there might be residue, this is sticky, so there might be residue on the block itself, which hinder the absorption of heat through this copper pipe. After installing the Glacier RGB, as you can see here, the two pictures, but before I explain on the pictures, this is the description at the top. You can go through them. These are mainly on the dimension and the fan settings, or should I say the current, and these are the LED drawn from the fans itself, the Stella fans. Now looking at the pictures from left and right, there isn't much space, as you can see. If I am to place a fan at the back instead of the front, it will hit the back I/O plate, which touches the VRM, so take note on this. By increasing this up, or should I say lifting this fan up, right, it will increase the height. So make sure you got enough clearance of your case, especially the side panel, to close. I will talk into details on the dimension itself. And if you were to place the fan at the back, do take note on your RAM clearance. You can't place any high profile rams, but you can only choose low profile. Take note on this. And this is actually the front itself, so you can see there's not much space. It's just nice. And it also depends on the clearance of your motherboard, be it over here or be it over here, so take note on this. Going into details, these are the measurements inclusive of both fans and the heatsink itself, right? It's measured at 132mm, and from the this is actually from the copper pipe to the processor itself is measuring 152. Earlier on I mentioned that if you were to lift this fan up, it might increase to 154 or 155, so do take note. It's best that your case itself, right, the width of your case, assuming this is there is a case over here, make sure you have a clearance of 160mm. And from the gap between the processor to the first fin over here is 42mm. Looking at the right picture here, right, at the front, as usual, this is 120mm, and from the fin stack to the fin stack, which is the tip to the top, is 102. Now on with the test. Final test of the day. This is the Glacier RGB from Gelid, and just to show you, it's live. So on the panel itself, again, I'm going to run 10 minutes. Now it dropped by 1 degree Celsius as compared to the Tranquillo Revision 5, so I'm going to run 10 minutes. Let me just change this to 10 minutes, and here we go. Minutes time is almost up, and look at the temperature. It's hovering around 78 degrees to 79 degrees Celsius, and there isn't any much throttling. And I will show the results of all the trees, or should I say the tools, exclude the original heatsink. Well, the results are out, and I've actually excluded the original heatsink. As you can see here, right, the Glacier itself running on 2 fans is twin tower, and the temperature is hovering about 78 to 79 degrees Celsius. No throttling, pretty good. And this is impressive, which is the Tranquillo Rev 5. Now with only one fan and a single tower, it's hovering about 77 to 78 degrees Celsius, which is 1 degree lesser than the Glacier RGB. There you have it, the result of this two heatsink coming from Gelid, known as the Tranquillo Rev 5 on your left and the Glacier RGB on the right. Now I'm pretty impressed with this heatsink itself, and it matches to take on my 5700, and I believe it will be able to take on the 5800, 5900 or even the 5950X processor from AMD. Reason being, right, the 2 DDP does matches. For the Tranquillo, it can take up to 150 watt TDP, and for the Glacier RGB, it takes up to 220 watt TDP. And if you guys want to mount this on an Intel system itself, do take note that only the Tranquillo Rev 5 you can place it on a Gen 12 processor. Reason being, it does come with a 1700 bracket that comes with it. As for the Glacier ARGB, probably you need to make some inquiries with Gelid, see if they do produce the 1700 brackets. Now, between these two heatsink, if you ask me personally what will I get, I will definitely get the black one. Reason being, right, I'm impressed by it. First of all, it's only running on one single tower compared to the Glacier, which is 2 tower, and it's only running on 1 fan. This is running on 2. If you guys fancy a ARGB fan, right, you probably can change the fans on the Tranquillo, not a problem. But as for temperature, I wouldn't know, because this fan is pretty good. I can feel quite high static pressure pushing through the fins itself. And another bonus point is it's in black, so if you want to place it in a black build case, right, or black build PC components, this will match everything. Now, speaking of the heat dissipation and the absorption itself, right, why I feel that the Tranquillo Rev 5 is better, take a look at the fin stack itself. Yes, it's tall and it's black. So as you know that black is a good absorption of heat, so it dissipates fast too. So I believe this is the reason why it works better compared to the Glacier itself. But do take note, having to say this, right, make sure that your case have ample airflow, as in like case airflow. If you were to place this in a very hot case, right, as mentioned, black is a good absorption of heat, so there are no heat dissipation. That goes to your processor temperature. Alright, I hope you guys have actually enjoyed what I've shared with you, and before I go, I'd like to thank Gelid and Block Soda to provide this two wonderful heatsink for me to do an open view and to share with all you viewers out there. For those of you who are actually new to my channel, and if you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till the next video, take care, goodbye, see ya.